pharma into banking, and I often think that the word silo was invented inside a bank. You go to the credit card department and you want to discuss something with credit cards, you then want to talk about your mortgage, and you've got to go to another department to go through the whole spiel and rigmarole of being vetted and explaining who you are, when really as a consumer you want one point of view. So we're going to be talking about data storytelling with Wynand Duisel, who's head of business intelligence at FNB South Africa, but maybe he could also explain why silo was invented inside a bank. Wynand.
Hello, test 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. Hello. Go on, Jim. Okay, right there. Thanks for having me. Cool. So storytelling. Probably one of the most distinct and oldest factors that make us human. For years, man has had the deep urge to tell their stories by drawing pictures in caves, mesmerizing others around campfires, or telling tall tales around the bride. Everyone loves a good story. We love listening to, reading, or watching, or telling stories. In fact, stories and storytelling are so entrenched in us as humans that we seldom stop to think for a second that it's our primary mode of information processing. So what exactly happens when we process stories in the brain? Well, if I were to hook you up to an MRI machine and start presenting facts and figures to you on the global water crisis, declining rainfall figures and average dam levels, only 3 parts of your brain would light up. Namely the visual cortex, which are seeing the information that I'm presenting to you, the linguistic cortex, as you're hearing this information, as well as the Wernicke area of the brain, which is processing this information I'm presenting to you. Now, if I were instead to tell you a story on how the global water crisis affects a family in Africa, whereby the mother has to walk for many kilometers every day to go fetch water for her and her family, what would happen in the brain then? If I describe the heavy buckets of water that she has to carry, your motor cortex would light up. If I describe the stale, smelly water source nearby that is too polluted for it to use, your olfactory senses might light up as if you were standing right there. If I describe how a young baby girl is in desperate need of this water and you may die without it, your empathy areas of your brain might light up. The age of simply presenting numbers is gone. Because you're using more of your brain, you're having a richer brain event. You're understanding the content better, and you're likely to retain this information for much, much longer. In addition, when in story, the audience has a stronger connection to you as the storyteller, as well as to the story itself. Paul Zak, a professor at Claremont College, researched the role of oxytocin in the brain. Now, oxytocin is the neurochemical that gives others that safe to approach signal. In his research, Zak discovered that if you create tension, you will sustain attention. If you sustain attention, it is likely that your audience will share the feelings and emotions of the main characters in the story. And if your audience shares these feelings and emotions, they're likely to mimic them when the story is over. So thus, when data and story are used together, we are connected intellectually and emotionally. Aristotle concluded that a story is made up out of 2 main parts: complication and unraveling. During the complication, the protagonist would find trouble as the knot is tied or revealed. And during unraveling, the knot will be untied or resolved. Gustav Freytag argued that a story is made up out of 5 main acts: the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the resolution, or denouement. I'll have a closer look at some of these, and I'll use some Star Wars references, if you guys don't mind. For those of you who have not seen Star Wars, I will use some chick flick references. Right, so this is just to show how story follows a similar arc, regardless of how good or maybe bad the story is that you're watching. So the exposition. The exposition includes important background information to the audience, such as character backstories, events occurring before the main plot, and so forth. In Star Wars, this is your a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away moment. In chick flick, this is the girl meets boy moment. The rising action. This is the series of events that build up to the climax. It's usually the most important part of the story, as the entire plot depends upon it. This is where Luke Skywalker gets the all-important message on R2-D2 from Princess Leia, saying, "Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you are our only hope." This catapults him on a journey that ultimately leads him to the destruction of the Death Star. In your chick flick, this is the part where the relationship would start developing. Which brings us to everyone's favorite part, the climax. The climax is the turning point that changes the fate of the protagonist. If it's a comedy and things were going badly for the protagonist, things might start to unfold in his or her favor. If it's a drama, the opposite would happen. In Star Wars, this is the part where they look at the Death Star plans, they assemble their fleet, and they start heading out into battle. It's a big hoo-ha moment. Things are going to work out. In your chick flick, this is the girl falls for boy moment. Oh look, no. Yeah. Falling action. Falling action is where the conflict between the protagonist and the antagonist would unravel. Often contains a moment of final suspense that puts the outcome of the narrative in doubt. In Star Wars, the attack on the Death Star is going pretty poorly. Many of the fighters have been destroyed. First attack on the Death Star has failed, the bomb run. And Darth Vader himself is taken to the skies and is busy kicking everyone's butt. In your classic chick flick, this is where they now experience a relationship crisis. Sure. And then the resolution. The resolution contains events from the falling action right down to the end of the drama or narrative. This is where loose ends are tied up, and it creates the sense of catharsis for the audience. In Star Wars, this is just as you think the attack on the Death Star has failed. Han Solo swoops in with the Millennium Falcon, helps Luke successfully bomb the Death Star. Okay? In your chick flick, this is where at the airport, she gets onto a plane. As she's about to take off, he starts running next to the plane. Yeah? Grabs onto the wheel with his tires and proclaims his everlasting love for her. And everyone goes, oh, man. And if you're Shakespeare, all your characters died. Story arc is nothing new. Looking at a classic fairy tale, I've depicted ecstasy versus misery over time. As you can see, it's followed exactly the same thing. It peaks the climax where Cinderella goes to the ball and dances with the prince. There's the falling action where she has to go home, and then it ends on a nice high with the resolution where the prince finds her and they all live happily ever after. In his 1985 essay titled How to Write with Style, Kurt Vonnegut outlined 8 rules for successful writing and thus storytelling. So I'm going to touch on 6 of them. Number 1, find a subject you care about. Find a subject you deeply care about. More importantly almost, find a subject that your audience, in this case your protagonist will be your CEO, whoever else you're presenting to. Find a subject that they deeply care about. Number 2, don't ramble. Rambling causes your audience to lose focus and it discredits everything else that you're about to say. 3, keep it simple. The Bible opens up with a sentence well within the writing skills of any 9-year-old. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Such a short, simple sentence that is easily understood and gets straight to the point. Which brings me to my next point. Have the guts to cut. If a visual or a number or whatever you decided to stick into this presentation does not illuminate your main story, cut it out. Think about deleted scenes when you watch the DVD extra features. Some of those deleted scenes are actually pretty good, but they've been left out because they didn't illuminate the main story. Woo, that went well. This is not even my presentation. But I can wing it. Okay, I'll carry on. Visual sources. Right, number 5, be yourself and say what you want to say. Don't try to overcomplicate things because you want to sound clever. We all have one of those guys in the office. Some of them maybe even made it here. So give your audience what they're expecting. Keep your stories simple and easy to understand. And lastly, pity your audience. Your audience has to make sense of this new fantastic visualization that you downloaded, or this new amazing stat that you crafted, almost in an instance. It's the first time they're seeing this. Know your audience and try to make these stories relatable and human. You should also select a storytelling medium that is most applicable to your audience. Do they need a live presentation, or do they need something that they can go and read in their own time? And if so, how much information should you include in this? Think if your audience cares about every single point that you're trying to make. Even the best visualization in the greatest visualization tool of your choice means nothing without a proper narrative to give it context. Spoken words are easier versus the written narrative, which is much harder. So think about what keywords need to be present to complement this media that the story is being told within. One of the key problems, I believe, are the data workers are not taught design. It's like being taught how to speak a new language without knowing anything about how to interact with other people. The one skill can only complement the other. So many times I've seen a dashboard or a report or something being presented to business, rolled out, no? Where we first have to go and explain to the end user how to interpret this new graph or something, you know? Because first they don't understand it, and you're like, no, this is actually that axis. It doesn't work that way. When I worked for a fintech area in F&B called NAV, designing for the end user from the very beginning was paramount. When we were going through wireframes and screen flows, we had a very simple mantra. If you have to explain it, you've already failed. My point is, how many of you went on Facebook training, or Google training, or WhatsApp training? Again, make your stories intuitive and easy to use. Think how your story will be told when you are not there to tell it for yourself. Aaron Levinstein said, statistics are like a bikini. What they reveal is suggestive, but what they conceal is vital. So this is well-known numerism in the data community, I thought. But it does ring true. You need to decide what you are suggesting in your stories. But almost more importantly, you need to decide what you are concealing by not explaining and telling the entire story. So don't tell your stories in a vacuum. Stories are meant to be shared, but make sure that your story remains the same story. Create an environment in which your team feels comfortable to tell these stories in their own unique way. These radical new perspectives may unlock new angles on stories. Data should not just be data. It should always contain a message and a story that should be actioned. Thank you.
Peter, thank you very much. Am I on? I'm just going to set up the projector as well. So it was on here.
But? Hey, yeah, okay, there we go. You did that on purpose, didn't you?
Yeah, I actually only did half the presentation.
Genius. Absolute genius. No, because if you think about what you were talking about was the power to tell a good story and not to overload people with visuals and graphics and to clutter and become muddy and muddle. And really what you did in the middle of your presentation was force the entire audience to listen to your story. Yeah. And I think you should use that going forward. That was brilliant. Clearly not planned though. We've got 5 or so minutes for questions. So with that, clearly you're not going to answer my question about silos, so I'd like to open it up to the floor to see if we've got any questions for Wynand. By the way, I'm an F&B client, so free plug here. I love the nav function, very intuitive. It shows me exactly how poor I am on a daily basis. Any questions from the floor? We've got the roving mics, and just remember to introduce yourself before you ask the question. Gentleman at the back there.
Thank you. Carl Dinkelman from Actech Systems. Just a question around how this happens practically with the business. We've been doing some exploration around adjusting our approach to requirement gathering and making it more of a brainstorming collaborative effort. Can you tell us a bit about what you guys are doing in that space?
Okay, so if I'm understanding your question correctly, I think I had a very similar question when I was doing a dry run with my team through this. And they were like, so how do I apply this? You know, I just do reporting. Okay. If you watched Donald's presentation, those ore trucks, the Komatsu ore trucks, their drivers probably used to think, I'm only a truck driver. You know? The people who are going to succeed are the people who said, yes, I'm a truck driver, but I think I should start learning about, can I become an operator? Can I become, what can I go study to make myself better, to start programming these trucks, etc. So it's all about getting more involved in business. And stop thinking of yourself as, I'm just a truck driver. Does that answer your...
Lady at the back there.
Hi, I'm Nicole from Pernod Ricard. So now that we know the importance of a well-constructed story, how do you manage the quality of the stories that's being generated in the business? Especially since we have self-service BI everywhere now.
Oh, that's a good question. I think everyone will always try to make their own stories. Again, it's the bikini analogy. You know, some people see the bikini, some people see what it hides, maybe, depending where you are. So yes, again, that probably comes back to the. I don't want to say that your semantic layer will solve for everything. That's an important component. The semantic layer is probably the golden thread that holds the story together. How you interpret the data, again, to Donald's point, we're all human. We see what we want to see. So that is an unfortunate thing that you can't get away from. That's where your company strategy and so forth comes in. Strategic alignment between all your business units. You know, what are we supposed to see in the story? Am I walking into what I think is a cool action movie, and actually I've walked into a horror movie? This happens a lot.
Can I just add to that? How much time to bolt onto what Donald was saying? How much
Time do you spend with your team testing your own inherent biases? And I ask this because I interviewed the CEO of Morningstar. They sit down as fund managers and they have, almost on a daily morning basis, a little session where they'll go and have a few theses that they test, and they'll then go and quiz each other and kind of stress test it and do a bit of A/B testing and try and tease out the inherent biases that we naturally bring to a thesis or a problem or a solution. How do you go about overcoming those inside your team?
Sure. So I think that came by accident almost, but I will lie and say it's by design. Our team, we specifically, we act as a shared service within the First Rank Group. We do BI for quite a few different areas. Nice thing about that is there's no bias. You report on what you see. Okay. As you become closer to the business, so for example, one of the areas that we do analytics for is for agricoms. So your agricultural stuff, how many mealies did we sell last year, February, and so forth. Now, if you're a person particularly fond of mealies, now you probably highlight that. Okay. So the nice thing is we have about 15 people in the team. So not everyone knows what everyone's busy with. But what we like to do is to bounce these things once it's in production, show it to a mock end user, and again, like tell them or ask them, does the story make sense? What do you read into this story before it goes out into business? Again, to that latest question, what business makes of it when they see it, that's their own thing.
But you've at least gone through your own internal testing before you send it out. Good. Right, well, I think you've actually stunned everyone, firstly with your beautifully trimmed beard, secondly with your fantastic presentation. Dana, thank you very much. Dana, Jason, everyone, a big round of applause. FNZ South Africa. Dana, you've also given us a bit more time for the morning coffee break, so we are going to break now.